Hi, everybody. Another gorgeous morning in Ottawa. Rain all day, and the sun just came out. It's marvel. Anyway, we have a few questions for tonight, and at least one for the seminar, I think, hopefully, coming up. And we would love to have more. There's a couple more Thursdays before the seminar. And I'm not sure. I thought there was something I wanted to announce, but darned if I can remember. We have one from Toshi, and he says, I've been thinking about blissful meditations. In some ways, I'm trying to avoid that in fear of getting either brainwashed or attached, addicted to this same way, in some way. However, one thing I've just read is from The Way of Hermes that you recommended to me at the last seminar. It says, if you can perceive God, you will perceive beauty, goodness, and splendor, illumined by God. Thus, insofar as you perceive God, you must perceive beauty and goodness. And that comes out of the philosophical background of Plato, by the way. I think it was, you might, if you've looked this up, Toshi, you might realize that there's some involvement with Neoplatism, and there's all kinds of considerations around that element of philosophy. So insofar as you perceive God, you must perceive beauty and goodness, as they are inseparable from God. If you seek after God, you also seek after beauty. There is one way leading to that beauty, devotion, with knowledge. Now, does with knowledge mean with experience? Perhaps the devotion is built up upon knowledge and experience. So it is not a brainwashing, but a relationship built upon this experience and knowledge. In the old traditions, and it goes back a long way, into way back in Buddhism, Hinduism, and relationship with knowledge, knowing knowledge, and that concept has to primarily to do with engaging with an energy within you that relates to various levels of itself. In one way of looking at it, and this is pretty consistent all the way along the line with most belief systems, is if you can perceive energy within you, you begin on to travel the pathways relating to knowledge. Knowledge in our world is often considered information, and it really has nothing to do with information, basically whatsoever. What it has to do with is a perception of energy flow through you for the purpose of being helpful to others and to yourself. And how that shakes through in our particular coarser levels here is kind of very subjective. We have another dilemma when this book was written, where they were talking about the idea of the soul talking to you. And the soul was considered an aspect and is considered an aspect. It's like a level of consciousness that holds within itself all aspects of how you have been in any lifetime. It's like a reservoir with only one directive: to continually engage somehow with existence, not only these planes, but with existence, so that you could begin to be able to handle a flow of that beauty, truth, and goodness that is discussed around this time period, the time of Plato, roughly, and Aristotle and Socrates, which was an engagement with God or very high states. The dilemma with this is, and we talked a little bit about this when Michael asked the question on the dueler of the something or other. The individual personality that is on these levels, individual personality on these levels is a buffer, so that in a kind of a way, it sets itself in these planes, in these levels, as a protector against anything that will make it shift too quickly. Well, that sounds really strange. When many of us ache or hope to gain access to deeper levels than we can already handle. What's often never talked about is that so-called higher states or energy engagements can occur on many different levels. And of course, in our logic, if that is true, then a higher state to us is really not a very high state. But that's not how higher states engage. You see, we have a quirk in our personalities that is necessary on these levels. We are judgmental. We come up with statements, directives that are meted out as we journey through life, depending on the timeline that we might be in, that relate to the value of higher right. It used to be a king. Now it's rules and regulations that make sense to us, so that we can engage with each other and find a place where we can have commonality, a ground where we can speak to each other, a way of engaging that is reasonable. So in that statement, you know that there are those who are not reasonable. There are those who are extremely reasonable. And we start coordinating a response towards this kind of engagement, which is of value to us, in such a way as to be comforted by ourselves in a very strong way, so that we can kind of be a little bit more flexible in relationship to ourselves and others. Usually, though, our training places us in positions of somehow value, and whatever that might mean to each and every individual. Our dilemma with that is that in a valuable state that we find ourselves in, that state, from our perspective, whoever is out there, I don't care who it is, it just doesn't matter, or in here, whatever, then you engage in a kind of a way that is relatively valuable in a given context, in a given situation. And every one of us does this kind of thing. We have ideas about what is high and what is low, and what's in the middle. We have ideas about that. We don't have knowing about it. We cannot perceive that level of engagement yet. But we've been talking about stuff over the years that are involved directly with a level of perception called knowing. And that is the ability to perceive in another the relationship that they have currently as they progress through an engagement with existence that allows them to feel comfortable in their own skin on these coarser levels, or to engage with these levels somehow, and they're beginning to engage with other levels somehow. That is the commencement of knowing. It's related to energy and the engagement with seeing in another the level of their ability to engage with higher states. Now, that seems a little bit convoluted to all of us folks who are really basically focused on doing the best we can from day to day. However, along with that, there is an engagement. There can be an engagement with a perception that allows one to understand that the person you're talking to is in a state, continual state. And I mean anyone you talk to. I, no matter who it is, even if you don't like the way they express themselves, they're in a state of movement within them relative to this reservoir, this ability to ultimately begin to notice that inner flow of consciousness and where it's coming from and how it is extending its relationship with the individual in a way that will enable it to be helpful to others and help them grow more. It's kind of akin to you having 4 or 5 children, or 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, anyone having, and you want what is best for that child, not knowing how that child will grow through them. So you do your very best as an adult to help them to prepare so that they prepare in life so that they can figure out the best they can what it is that they will eventually be a part of. The problem is with that, there's already a grid in our society that emphasizes how if you decide to do one thing versus another or another or another or another or another, our society emphasizes certain ways of functioning through compensation or through a kind of respect. Respect for today is not the same as it was eons ago. If you were a great, wonderful warrior back in the 11th, 12th centuries, heading off towards to fight some war, and you were courageous, brave, and strong, and survived, then you were considered very valuable. Our heroes these days are quite different. But we have this grid that we use. Very seldom is there a grid out there that says, if you can perceive God in another, in other words, that flow of energy, at any level, you are engaging with the beauty of the inner workings of a being, the goodness. And as it engages with these planes, the personality then decides what's good right, wrong, what it will do, how it will do it. And seldom is it honestly known how that individual is internally. You see a bum on the street, your grid mechanism comes into play. You see a prime minister or president, your grid mechanism comes into play. You see a person who is quite able in some field, your grid mechanism comes into play. You see an old friend or someone you don't want to be around too much, your grid mechanism comes into play. It's neither good, bad, right, or wrong. It's a grid mechanism. What this gentleman was, when he wrote this particular rendering of how to perceive God or engage with God, is a rendering relative to a timeline where knowing was like an echo still being heard. This concept of knowledge had nothing to do with being bright, but philosophically, it had a tinge of brightness in it because there wasn't much discussed or able to be discussed about an inner knowing of the engagement that another had relative to their journey through lives and how it worked out so that that individual could become a balanced, structurally, emotionally, mental, physical, balanced individual, relatively speaking, where that flow at an even higher level could operate through them. This is kind of why I asked you to take a look at that book, to gauge and understand that no matter what level we attain to or think we've reached, there's a grid in place. And the personality is at work because it's unfolding all the time. Not bad, not good, none of that. It's unfolding. It's cultivating a movement towards a level of perception where you can watch how that flow operates through you or through another and be happy that that is an act of good, a relationship with the beauty of a higher state that an individual can handle. And there is an honorable truth that lies within it. The truth has nothing to do with good, bad, right, or wrong. It has to do with the effects that may occur in another to enable another to grow beyond what they believe they need to be like. All of us would love to have that happen 24/7, we'd think. But if it were 24/7, we would continually be shifting and changing internally and trying to make sense of and readapting that grid system. And we would be watching the grid system and saying, why am I thinking like that? I know, we're supposed to, but why am I doing that? There's something in me that's starting to tell me that that may not be helpful. But at the same time, generously, we need to engage and be patient with ourselves and understand that there is a tremendous depth to this level of encounter with knowledge beyond the concept and the definition that we hold dear to ourselves and use daily on these levels. So you can see that maybe there may be one grid there that you might be helpful to use on these levels from time to time, depending on the context. Another grid may be cultivated and perhaps flexible, more flexible than we can currently allow ourselves to understand, around the idea of knowing or knowledge. This is not an easy thing to make sense of, but it's a beautiful question. The dilemma here is, does with knowledge mean with experience? It means with the experience of an engagement with higher states. Perhaps the devotion meaning is built upon knowledge and experience, so it is not a brainwashing, but a relationship built upon the experience and knowledge. It's based on experience, but it's inner experience where you're reconsidering often, wondering why and wondering how that works. And it doesn't follow rules and regulations. It follows, it's like an inner, almost like a teaching. And it hasn't got anything to do with verbal acuity. It cultivates a kind of silence. You don't get a lot of credit for this stuff because it's not necessary. If you do, there's always a nervousness about becoming more attached to the personality and how you are. In fact, ultimately, if you can consider this, all of us have a timeline. We will live, each and every one of us, until our physical, emotional, mental structure breaks down through age or our DNA. We're just built that way, and everybody is on this planet. And some of our organs, based on our grandparents and parents and all the rest of it, way back through generations, are a little, let's say, unable in accordance with an average, or maybe they're more able in accordance with an average. And our physical form breaks down. I used to laugh and say, if this is a rental, we'll get another rental, or you'll exist on another level within the process of, or the engagement with life, wherever it may be, on these planes or others, held tightly to some other grid, or slowly understanding more than one grid, watching the energy move through to enable an individual to go past how they were before for a purpose that relates directly to allowing more to operate through them with touches here and there, almost like exclamations in our life. Wow, what was that? Oh, okay. It has nothing to do with programming, unless if you have an experience and then you program yourself to think you're superior because of it. I have a trick. If you have any experiences like that, attempt to teach. You'll find out that you're pretty basically human very quickly. Everyone that you are engaged with will be helping you to know that. And you'll begin to understand it. Also, though, you'll begin to have experience relative to those you're engaging with. You'll begin to learn from them how life is, how they are, and they're good people. They're beings of consciousness with the same potential that you have. No matter what you come up with and believe has to be true, it's only relative truth. They may be working through a kind of frequency that is extremely difficult for them. And you're not. Because you can't handle that. Or maybe you can, and you already did. Your inner growing comes from deep down inside, not from some statement that is made relative to each and every individual. As soon as you do this and this and this, then all of a sudden you're going to be that way. Many kinds of things make larger the personality, lean into it having to be extremely valuable. And that stands in the way of moving past the perception you have, even if you have some. Because when you open for more energy operating through you, it's a whole new thing. You're learning all over again. You see you from a different angle. Not from some rigid angle that you have to maintain, but you will maintain an angle that you come up with. That's programming. That's based on what you think you have to do. Slowly, that can melt away, at least to some degree. And then you find out it's still there someplace. You catch it in your day-to-day. And hopefully you can have a certain kind of sense of humor from time to time. But it certainly makes you vulnerable. Now, vulnerability is one of the things that happen when you're becoming more open. You're not as sure as you thought this grid that we were talking about. It's not as perfect as you thought it was. That's why we have a lot of different groupings, and they have rules and regulations, and this is how you have to be. And then we have the counter groupings. Everything is programming, and don't let anything program you. We let only the things that we think is okay program us. And those things are not the same as an inner perception of an occurrence that is actually there. And there are many levels of this. I know I said that before, but I'm saying it again. There are many levels of this. The higher the level that you engage with, the less you use the grid of your personality. But the more you attempt to slow down how you think things should be, because you know through experience, yes, through experience that Toshi was talking about, through experience that things aren't always the way you think they are. And often it's because there's not enough information in the personality level about others and you assume very much that you understand something about another without knowing them at all. And without understanding the internal dilemma that another is going through. To understand and to begin to perceive some of that is an actual relationship with goodness. You can only do that through that flow, that beauty of showing you something beyond your need to know, beyond your personality's kind of insistence of how things have to be. I hope that helps a little bit. In a kind of a way that almost, not quite, answers a little bit, if I can get this tied together. Toshi had another question. You often remind us of how we are affected by others too, I guess, and conversely, how we affect others. I am concerned about the possibility of an interaction with others that might result in physical symptoms such as headaches or other manifestations such as nausea, etc. My question is, how common are ailments that are associated with energy imbalances or stimulation? Oh boy, I'll continue on, finish the. If we work with the tools and teach family friends these tools, then could we help the problem and potentially ease some of these physical issues? It's possible. On our end, can we ask for the energy interactions to be gentle and appropriate? Absolutely. And we've been talking about this for a long time. And I think Toshi's bringing it back to our remembrance. How to answer this is, from my point of view, is part of an understanding related to perception. It's difficult for us to make sense of something that we don't perceive very well. But we can perceive our reactions, emotional reactions, if we allow ourselves to be okay with perceiving them. So it's like putting a kind of a lens on us and looking through it directly into us. You can look imaginatively, but don't add anything to your reactions. Recognize what's going on in there the best you can. You'll cultivate a kind of honesty with yourself that doesn't necessarily put down another for causing it. We often relate to this kind of stuff. In fact, we respond inside, and it's our response that we're involved with. Our response that we're involved with that causes us to extend a verbal interaction about another giving us a hard time or whatever, or giving us an enjoyable time. And there are a whole bunch of in-between stuff. So what we're trying to do there is perceive a little bit more than we can naturally perceive comfortably. So if energy is coming into you and it's trying to help you, it may stimulate. I'll give you an example. If an individual has an interesting brow center, for example, and it's open a little bit more than yours, I know I've talked about this before, or a heart center that's open a little bit more than yours, it will affect your solar plexus. think about that for a second. Your solar plexus will engage with the root and gonad center, and it will say, look out, energy coming in. It's going to make you respond. You might even react. It could be given in love and gentle, tremendous. But now it's engaging with a personality that's comfortable in doing whatever she or he does normally. If you grumble at this and grumble at that and grumble at that, it will increase your grumbling. Why? Because you're protecting against energy coming in to help you to grow differently. Interesting. So the natural response is, why should I bother growing then if I'm going to be different than the great whoever I think I am? Well, you don't hopefully think like that, but you have a relative love affair with whoever you are. That's why you maintain, and I mean maintenance, maintain the way you believe you need to be comforted by you and to engage with others so that they will know you as a valuable person or a valued person or a person that you, with the image that you in particular have relative to yourself. Fair enough. I don't see anything negative about anything right there, except that if you are insulated and defended well because of difficult early training or early life, you'll automatically defend against trying to be helped. Well, you'll be helped anyway. But here's the one thing that will happen. What you lean on to elevate your relationship with being of value will be the first thing that comes to bear. In other words, the first thing you will use as a defense, because it's uncomfortable to grow. Now, I know there are people out there that don't like that idea. And it would be natural to protect and defend being exactly the same way, because all of us do this to some degree, the same way every day. And to some degree, this is what we do, and we do it daily. The old adage that Paul was supposed to come up with was, I die daily. Well, in fact, what he was saying was, something within me is changing daily in my relationship with attempting to engage with a higher state. But that was a little bit too flowery because no one would have understood it unless he had been very specific. And even then, they would think he was a little bit loopy. And many people did, by the way. Any new place listening to him talk about the stuff he was talking about would have thought he was a little out of his tree. Some would, some wouldn't. And you know some of the stories, and many did. They kicked him out of the area, mainly because he was talking about stuff that related directly to change from a belief system that they already had to a new belief system. And he was trying to tell them, yeah, but you'll experience something, same as you can in most other devotional, reflexive engaging religious or philosophical backgrounds. There is a joy in growing as well as a kind of defensive aspect. If you notice that you're doing better under a certain context in your life than you were before, and you could actually think that maybe you had some help with it, and that means you have to actually admit that you might have needed a little bit of help in the structure that you already have developed, and have an inner belief that it is the best one and the only one that's viable. Hopefully, none of us think like that. But there is a tendency to lean in that direction, because nobody likes to be told that something else is as important as how they are acting or engaging with life. It's just one of these things that we all have. Take a look at history, you'll find it everywhere. When you're engaging with these levels, is it possible that you may have a headache if a lot of energy comes through your brow? Or you may be nauseous if the structure of that vortex in the solar plexus is actually shifting and changing? Is it possible that you might have strange things going on in your chest if your heart center starts opening in such a way as to allow you to perceive that there is actually energetic responses in these centers, or this particular center? What if the throat center starts opening? Will that affect you at all? Yes, it will affect anything above the diaphragm that opens, will affect the lower triad, or engagement with root gonad and solar plexus, because it's the basic basis of your existence. You move your body, you have a personalized will, do you have an engagement with your emotion as a sensory system that tells you when something is off according to your biases? Absolutely. Each and every one of us has this. If we don't, then we have difficulties dealing with these planes. Those difficulties can be overcome, but they are rudimentary. There are base structures. Don't let anyone tell you that they're not engaged ultimately with higher states, because it's not real. However, we have a grid that tells us sometimes that center is not a good center. This one is not very good either. That one, oh, it's too much of that. It's no. It's not very good. We do not really understand the essence of a relationship with a higher state that is already in us, giving us life at one level, and can be in us, open our brain and our nervous system to the proximity and engagement with that energy that is deeper inside of us, for the purpose of being able to note another's level of engagement that one could call a level of expression through which that God flow operates through us. One could say that. Spiritual flow operates through us. Life flow operates through us. We have these very rigid ways of denoting things because it serves a purpose, and that purpose is to allow us to feel comfortable because we know something. This is a different knowing than the knowledge of love, even for themselves, in another being. If you can perceive love in another being, let's say a raging person who is in pain every day of their life, trying to stop the pain. They're doing that because they love themselves. They get hooked on doing what they do, the same as we get hooked on doing what we do. There's no difference there. Well, yeah, the things are different, maybe, but we're still maintaining how we function, relatively speaking. Any shift and change in those things is difficult for them. Therefore, it may cause something to happen in the physical body. Physical body is porous as well. It's an energetic form. And it affects the emotions and will affect your thinking because your grid will start to shift or change. But you may not want it to, may not allow it to. Good try. It will change anyway. Some people used to think that we should be grateful that we have more than one life because we're so determined to maintain exactly how we are in one life that we can't learn by opening and perceiving beyond that previous schema or series of images that we hold dear to ourselves. But it's still loving. Yes, growing can be, I won't say hurtful, but it can be shifting. There might be a shift in our emotions because we use energy personally, honestly, every day to engage with life in the way that we believe we should. And we do that constantly. We don't think of it that way. We use our will. We call it our will. We use a flow of force for the purposes that we think we need to use them for. And that can be gratifying or not. Can a shift and change affect our organs? I think so. My perspective. If you are not used to handling certain ways of engaging with life, it may soften you down to handle one differently. Then you will battle because you're not used to getting the same juice as you normally are. You're battling for juice. The adrenal system is really valuable in that particular way of thinking. Too much cortisol, too much stress. If your personality demands stress, can be uncomfortable. But you know all these things. Many of you are very interested in finding things out about how you actually operate. I mean, relatively speaking, physically, emotionally, mentally. And this is a good thing. So continue with that. If we work with the tools and teach family about these tools, can it be helpful? Yeah, it could be. But remember, these are tools, and they will help your whoever you teach them to grow more. And sometimes they'll have questions, and you'll attempt to answer them. Be as positive as you possibly can, because that's what they are. Get them to open their hands and be generous to themselves and kind and respectful. That will be really helpful. And that energy. Yes, one thing I'm not sure whether this makes any sense, but sometimes in meditation, you will soften down so much that you'll just be kind of semi-glowing, meaning, what that meaning? Almost fall asleep and fall asleep. Some of you ache to fall asleep in meditation because it's a wonderful thing. It makes you feel really good. If you can do the pump just a little bit and keep a little bit aware, your awareness will increase. You'll notice that energy in and around you, not only in meditation, but every single day of your life. Intermittent at first. Don't worry about that part. And then more and more able. Take a look at how you respond and react. I know John asked a question at one point, John Markey from Chicago. The danger of growing or getting too far too soon. In other words, getting attacked, losing sanity, losing balance, blah, 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 blah. Being given false and misleading information. One of the things about growing is it's a very interesting thing. There's a thing that we often call intuition. And in other words, there are things that pop up in your mind. Often they're related to your biases. They make you feel better because they align with the biases. What I would suggest is find out what your biases are. Real intuition doesn't always agree with your biases. But intuition is related, in our definitions, to the mind and how things come up. There are many different levels of mind. My opinion, my experience. Sometimes what occurs is something quite different than how you have taught yourself how to think, how to engage, how to validate your personality, how to validate the injunctions that you make verbally, the expressions that are that everybody makes. And sometimes you catch one of those and you start laughing at it because within seconds you realize you don't even believe what you've said yourself. This is positive, extremely so. Check your reactions. If you get a lot of, and there's a lot in the world to be frustrated about, and there isn't any doubt about that. But your frustration is not helping. Your aggression towards reaction is validating you. It's what it's doing. Know where you stand. I don't agree with what's going on there, or there, or there. And that's where I stand. That's where I stand. I don't have to elevate where I stand. If I do, I'm adding that kind of frustration or anger to the core structure of humanity, which is easy to dig into. if you're in a position to do so. You're validating your own personality. Not you, but the other person. Other people can be validating their personality with tremendous amounts of intensity. Don't add to the intensity the best you can. You will add to it. This is the nature of our personalities. Slow it down, pause it down. Remember that anything, if you want to be helpful, anything that you can do to gentle down the intensity would be helpful to the core of our species. Sounds a little strange. Nonetheless, think it through. We're all involved as a species. We make up that species. Carl Jung would have said we're part of the collective unconscious. Well, very interestingly, if you stretch that out a little bit, you can make sense of being a part of the intensity or the love, since every individual on the planet loves themselves. It's an aspect of love at this level. You shift that and change it and begin to see love from a different perspective and understand it differently. You start engaging with that flow and not using it for your own purposes to accentuate the value you place on yourself in what you say and what you do. Suddenly, you're engaging with love slightly differently because what you did before, that was love too. But now it's different. This is very difficult to understand if you need to believe that if you don't do life the way you exactly do it, then life will change for you and it will be not comfortable. What you're dealing with there is what you've already called comfortable. And that is legitimate because all the rest, most everybody is doing the same thing. So some thought, additional thought about how you're affecting your tones, your engagement, are affecting others, or being a part of how we all are a part of that same interactive engagement, psychologically, philosophically, reactively, interactively. And make a small change there, the best you can. It will be helpful. Very. Okay. I think it's probably a good idea if we attempt to meditate. So thank you very much for the questions, John and Toshi. And I have a bare minimum left. One I'm going to save for the seminar. And one I will attempt to engage with next Thursday. I wish everybody really, really a very enjoyable evening. And please take care of yourselves. And we will start to meditate fairly soon. Bye for now.
How do you get it to play?
It's not through there. It's just on here.
Okay.
It's in my ears.
Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturabhujam Prasannavadaram Dhyaye Sarvavighnopashantaye Gajananam Bhutaganaadi Sevitam Kapita Jambu Balasara Pakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam Shikapavana Modakahasta Samarakarna Vilambita Sutra Vilambita Sutra Vanarupa Maheshwara Putra Maheshwara Vighna Vinayaka Pada Namaste. Parashakti Sundari Namastasye, 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 Namo Mahamaye Mangali Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Mahakali Bhairavi Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Mahalakshmi Vaishnavi Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Mamba Lalita Devi Ma Saraswati Brahmi Namastasye, 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 Namo Lalita Devi Durga Devi Shankari Namastasye, 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 Namo Uma Parvati Shive Namastasye, 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 Namo Lalita Devi Ma Bhavani Ambike Namastasye, 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 Namo Mamba Lalita Devi Annapurna Lakshmi Ma Namastasye, 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 Namo Namah. Mamba Lalita Devi Kamala Katyayani Namastasye, 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 Namo Tvam Tripura Sundari Namastasye 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 Namo Mata Bhuvaneshwari Namastasye 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 Namo Lalita Tvam Raja Rajeshwari Namastasye 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 Namo Lalita Bhagavati Bhargavi Namastasye 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 Namo Mamba Parabhakti Varade Namastasye 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 Namo Mamba Lalita Maya Vishwamohini Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha Narayani Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Lalita Nitya Parameshwari Namastasye, 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 Namo Jagadambe Janani Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Tvam Ananda Sagari Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Sarvamangala-mangalye Shive Sarvartha-sadhike Sharanye Triambake Devi Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shankaradhanga Saundarya Shariraye Namo Namaha. Sanvarakatasmacha Vigrahaye Namo Namaha. Atishaya Saundarya Lavanyaye Namo Namaha. Atishaya Saundarya Lavanyaye Namo Namaha. Shashanka Shekhara Rana Vallabhaye Namo Namaha. Sada Panchakashatmekya Svarupaye Namo Namaha. Vajramanitya Kataka Kiritaye Namo Namaha. Vajramanitya Kataka Kiritaye Kasturi Tilakola Sanitilaye Namo Namaha. Asmarekantikalasanvastakaye Namo Namaha. Kachamurhadalochanaye Namo Saracchaveya Pushpabhanasikaye Namo Sankanchanatatangayukalaye Namo Namaha. Sankashakapulaye Namo Namaha. समुच्चाय कन्दराय नमो नमः Shabakamangalyamangalaye namo namaha Shankushanasatkaracchaye namo namaha Namo Samyuktaye namo Namo Namaha
Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. Good night, everyone.
Namo Namah